I'm Julie. I work on the Go team with Rebecca, and today we're going to show you how to build a Go web application with the help of the Go package discovery site and your Go editor tools. If you don't already have Go installed on your computer, you can do so at the link shown on the screen. If you need help, you can check out the video of Steve's Getting Started with Go session from earlier today. In this session, we're going to start by showing you how to set up your editor for Go development.
Thanks, Julie. Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca, and I work on the Go team. One of the great things about Go is that the Go team provides back-end tooling that plugs into many of the popular text editors, like VS Code, Vim, Emacs, and Sublime. For today's tutorial, we'll use VS Code. However, all of the features that we show you today are available in those other editors too. So we'll begin by creating our project. You can find this code on GitHub at the URL in the demo. We're going to run go mod init to create a module, which you saw earlier in Steve's presentation. So now let's open our module in VS Code. Here is the go mod file that is created by running go mod init. You can see here. And you can see that I've already installed the Go extension, which you'll need for coding with Go. And you can install it by searching for Go in the extensions pane. So next, we'll create our Go program by creating a main.go file. And since we're using modules, the extension will prompt us to install the language server, Go Please. So this is the editor backend that I mentioned earlier. Go Please works in all editors to provide an IDE-like experience for Go, especially with Go modules. And so once we install it, we'll be able to use the various IDE-like features like completion to create our package and our main program. And now once we're done with that, we'll be ready to start coding.
So now that our editors are set up, let's go ahead and build something. As Steve mentioned in the Intro to Go session this morning, web applications are one of the most popular things that developers like to build in Go. So we're going to do that today. I'll start by sharing with you one of my favorite things, which is this turkey chili recipe. I've been making this recipe all year and I have it saved on my computer in a Markdown file. But what I would really like to have is a nicer UI to read this recipe and other recipes in my collection. So today, we're going to build a web app which reads this Markdown file, converts it into HTML, and renders it in our browser. That way, we'll have an easy way to browse all of our favorite recipes. And as a first step to building our web app, let's read the Markdown file and print the contents of that file to our terminal. So in the module that Rebecca just created, I'm going to create a directory called static, and I'll copy the Markdown file and image for that recipe into this folder. There are tons of packages that are part of the Go standard library and included when you install Go. In Steve's Getting Started with Go session earlier, he showed us how to use the Fumpt package. I'm going to use another package from the standard library called IOUtil. So let's check out this package on the Go discovery site, which lives at pkg.go.dev. The Go discovery site is a website with information about Go packages that you might want to discover, evaluate, and integrate into your modules. I want to give you a preview of some features that are going to be coming soon. So in this tutorial, I'm actually going to be working off a new version of the site that will be live in the next few weeks. I'm going to start by going to our search bar over here and looking up the IOUtil package. And as we can see from the package documentation, IOUtil implements some IO utility functions. In this tutorial, we're going to use the read file function to read our Markdown file from disk and then print it into the terminal. So let's go ahead and look for the read file function in this index and click on it. This will take us straight to the function, and from here I can see the function signature, a description of how to use the function, and an example. So let's open up the example and go ahead and copy it so that we can then build off of it in our editor.
Now let's start writing some code. Let's create a web server to present our turkey chili recipe. In the same module that we created earlier, we're going to add a helper function to load a page by reading this turkey chili recipe file from disk. I'll just paste in the code that Julie copied from the IOUtil package earlier, and I'll put it into our load page helper. You'll remember that Steve manually updated import statements in the earlier talk, but when I save the file, the editor will automatically format my code and it will add all of the necessary imports to the top of my file. Finally, we'll just clean up the code a little bit to match our helper function's signature. So now that we've read the file, we can actually begin building out the web app. You can build a web server in Go using only the standard library with the net HTTP package. So we're going to start by exploring that package. I'm not necessarily sure of which function I will need to use, but I know that I want to register code to run an HTTP handler. So I can just start off by typing the HTTP package and triggering autocomplete. I'll immediately see a bunch of symbols related to handlers, and I can figure out which one to choose by reading the documentation that pops up on the side here. I think that handle func is the one that I want because it lets me create a handler with a single function. So that's the one that I'm going to pick. But I still want a little bit more information about how to use handle func. Fortunately, when I hover over the function, I'll see a link to the discovery site, package.go.dev. When I click on it, I get taken to the documentation for handle func in the net HTTP package. And here we have not just documentation, but another example. So we can open up this example and we can use our same trick from earlier and just copy and paste this code directly into our editor. So this is all the code that it takes to write a basic web server in Go. Let's modify it to use our load page helper function that will read our recipe file. We'll start off by validating the user inputs in the URL. Make sure they typed in the right thing. They're looking for the turkey chili recipe. And then we're going to call the load page function to print out the file content. Next, we'll add some logic to handle any errors that may occur while we're reading the file. And you'll notice that the completion is designed to search all of the available symbols in the workspace. So you don't even have to type HTTP dot to get that internal server error completion. You can just start writing out the word internal because that's what you know what you're looking for. And then finally, we'll just format the content as an HTML template so that we can actually render it on the web page. Now, let's run the server and see how it looks. Not too bad, we got something going, but the formatting isn't very readable. It would be really nice if we could actually render that markdown as HTML. So the standard library has gotten us really far. We've made an entire web app, but unfortunately, the standard library doesn't have a markdown parser. So Julie, how can I go find one?
We can use the Go package discovery site to search for third-party packages that we might want to use. So I'm going to go to the discovery site and type in Markdown into the search box. And look, there are a lot of results. This first one here is Black Friday. And if we take a look at it, it seems to be pretty popular based off the imported by count. So let's go ahead and click into that one and take a look. So on this page, I see a banner that tells me there's a newer V2 version. I'm going to go ahead and use this V2 package instead. And I can see on this page that the V2 version seems to have less importers than the V1, which is likely why it was ranked lower in search. I want to figure out how to use Black Friday. So let's take a look at the README. From the README, I see this installation section. And so I'm going to click expand, which is right underneath it. There are instructions here on how to go get and import this package. And if I look through the README a little bit more and go ahead and scroll down on this page, I see that Black Friday is currently maintained and the recommended version is V2. So we're looking at the right version now. The package documentation is also a useful place to look for information, and we can access it from the left side nav. This overview tells me that Black Friday is a markdown processor, and the other description here is that it tells me the simplest way to invoke Black Friday is to go ahead and call the run function. So I'm going to go to this jump to identifier box here and search for run. And so this brings up the run function and I can click on it, which will take me straight to that identifier. I can see the function signature, a description. And this description here tells me that all I need to do to use Black Friday is to pass in an input, and then I'll get back an HTML output. So I think that this package is worth trying out. So I'm going to go to my header and click this copy button to get the import path onto my clipboard. Rebecca, how about we go ahead and give Black Friday a try in our editor?
Thanks for finding a markdown parser, Julie. Now let's go ahead and use it. So we're going to run a go get command to add Black Friday to our module and to our local module cache. Immediately you'll see that my project's go.mod file is modified to add new dependencies. And also immediately, the editor will show me that these dependencies are not yet used in our module, which is expected. We haven't used the Black Friday package yet. But now that the package is in our module cache, the editor can provide auto-completion and other support for it. So let's go ahead and use Black Friday in our module. When I type out Black Friday, the editor will offer me multiple options, since there are multiple versions available. But Julie suggested that we should use v2, so let's pick that one. And Julie also suggested that we should use the run function to parse the markdown, so we'll use that one as well. And finally, we'll just make some minor modifications to the code to return an HTML template, since that's what we need to render the markdown as HTML. And now it's time to try running our code once again. Awesome, the turkey chili recipe showed up, but I'm not sure if it's rendering totally correctly. There's still something off about those emojis at the top, and also our table doesn't look much like a table. Julie, do you think there's an issue with this markdown file?
Let's take a closer look and see how to evaluate a third-party Go package. It seems like the things that are broken on this page are the table and the emojis. And I know I followed the spec for GitHub Flavor Markdown, but maybe there's an issue with how Black Friday is parsing my Markdown file. Let's go ahead and look at the documentation for Black Friday again. I'm going to search for GitHub Flavor Markdown this page, and let's see if anything comes up. Oh, and look, it takes me right to this section, and it tells me that Black Friday is structured to allow alternative rendering engines, but GitHub Flavor Markdown isn't supported right out of the box. What about emojis? Let's search for that on the page. It looks like nothing is coming up, but if I go and click this repository link to go and look at the project, I can browse around on the issue tracker and see if anything comes up there. So let's go to the issue tracker, search for the word emoji, and see if anything comes up related to emoji support. So there's this closed issue here, and if I click on it and click through this issue and look through the top, and maybe I'm going to scroll to the bottom here and see if there's a resolution. It seems like what this is telling me is that Black Friday is compatible with this other third-party package that provides emoji support, but it doesn't have it integrated directly. So Black Friday could still be a great package to use, but I'm kind of curious to know if there's something else that would fit my use case better. So how about we go ahead and revisit the search results that we had for Markdown before. So on this page, I see that the second result in this list is something called Go Markdown. In this case, this package doesn't have a tagged v1 version, and so it might not necessarily be stable. I don't really want to pull this package into my project just yet in case this breaks something later on. There's this other project here, Goldmark, though, that looks promising. It has over 100 importers, and there's a v1 release. Let's click through it and see what this project is like. So from this page, I can immediately see that the latest version of Goldmark was published pretty recently. And if I go and click on the version history, I see that there's a pretty consistent history of maintenance for this project. Going back to the main page, let's look through the README and see what that says. I'm going to look for GitHub Flavor Markdown support again. And right at the top here, it tells me that Goldmark is easy to extend and there are extensions provided for GitHub Flavor Markdown. If I scroll through this README a little bit more, I see the other features here. One of which being that it's really easily extensible. And if I look through the usage section, it provides me examples of how to use that code and code snippets that I can use to pull stuff into my code. Okay, Rebecca, I think we have enough information here. Do you want to go and give Goldmark a try?
Sounds good. Let's switch out Black Friday for Goldmark. We're going to start off by downloading the Goldmark package, but it might be easier if I extracted a helper function to do the markdown rendering, and then I modified that. So I'm going to highlight the area that I want to extract and click Extract to Function. The editor will refactor the code for me, and all I have to do is rename the function to something a little bit more useful, maybe something like render markdown. And then finally, we'll replace all of the code in the render markdown function to be the code that uses Goldmark. So I'll just paste that in, and then we're ready to go. Let's try running our server one last time. Awesome, looks exactly as we expected. We have our turkey emojis at the top, and we have our formatted table.
Well, our package is ready for use. and we had pushed it to GitHub, and the code is open source. So I would really love to see this package in the Go Discovery site. Let's go ahead and add it. So while we're on our project's GitHub page, let's add a pkg.go.dev prefix to the URL so then we can see this package on the Discovery site. You'll notice our package isn't here yet, but I can go ahead and click this request button, and that will request for the package to be downloaded. And there it is. We can see our README, we can see the documentation, and then if we look in the header here, we can see an imports link, and clicking on that shows us all the packages that we've been importing into our package. If we then click on source files on the left-hand side, this takes us to the bottom of the page, and here's the file that Rebecca has been editing this whole time in VS Code. We can click on it, and it'll take us to the actual code repository, and here's all the code that we've been working on during today's tutorial. But it would be really nice, though, if when users stumbled upon our package on GitHub, they knew that they could also look at our package documentation on the Go Discovery site. So the Go Discovery site actually provides a badge exactly for this use case. We can generate a badge and then put it in our README, and then when people see our README, they'll know to click on it. So let's go to pkg.go.dev/badge. And we can put the module path into this input box. I'll go back to the project page and copy the URL and then paste it right here. This will then generate code snippets for me. So there's one for HTML and one for Markdown. I'm going to click to copy the one for Markdown and add that to my clipboard. And then I'll go back to our repository and go and edit the README file and put this code snippet into the top of our README file. And if I click the Preview Changes button, I'll see that there's a badge now at the top of our README file. And anybody comes across it and clicks on this badge, they'll be taken straight to our project page on the Go Discovery site.
So our demo code is public, but so are the tools that we use today. The code bases for the Go Package Discovery site and the Go Editor tools are also open source. If you want to contribute to these Go projects, you can find them at the links on the screen.
You can also find the package that I've been working on in this tutorial right on the Go Discovery site at this URL. Thank you for joining us today. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us on